Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Pollock, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, How to Achieve Paperless Document Management in 4 Departments, presented by Perry Lynn Silkwood and Mark Whitback of Alltech. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. However, throughout the webinar, you can submit any questions you have. If you need to submit a question, look for the questions section or the chat section of your GoToWebinar box, and we'll answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. We're also recording this presentation, and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees, as well as those who registered but were unable to attend. And finally, we would appreciate your participation in our polling questions throughout the presentation and also your response to our closing survey. With that said, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to attend this webinar, and we're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions. Whether that's helping you find an easier way to run your business by providing a tool support software or industry knowledge, or just helping you learn through these webinars. So whether you're here researching a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask your questions. And as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel where we post all our recorded webinars. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Perry and Mark.
Thank you, Courtney. Sure appreciate it. And good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really delighted to have this chance to showcase DocLink for you and really explore how you can take your organization paperless. And we're going to look at it through the lens of these 4 different departments. But let's take a look at some industry trends, right? According to our research, about 94% of businesses are going to have some kind of mix of this in-office remote work. So just think about, where you're doing your work today and the complexity it introduces when you're trying to have access to documents and data at your fingertips, right? Especially if the documents that you're typically dealing with are maybe in hard copy, or maybe they come in via email and they require additional processes. So we're going to be exploring what it means to take your business paperless. And we're going to do that through a complete digital transformation and make sure that we can really connect the right people with the right documents and the right data and give you a competitive advantage. So in today's webinar, we're going to cover many different topics. We're going to cover why go paperless, what's in it for you. We're going to talk about the various departments where DocLink can really provide a meaningful impact. And then we're going to do a little bit of exploration in other areas, and then we're going to cover what sets DocLink apart in the marketplace. But before we dive in, let's do a little poll, because I would love to understand a little bit more about what has brought you to today's webinar, right? What's really going on in your organizations that you're trying to solve? So it could be that and I think Courtney is promoting the webinar, or excuse me, the poll right now, but please check one of those boxes and let us know, are you looking for, a solution to meet the needs of your remote workforce? That could be one. It could be that you're just simply seeking education on what it means to go paperless and have AP automation in your organization. It could be that you're clear that there is an enterprise-wide need in multiple departments to really drive productivity and make things go much faster in the organization. It could be everything as well. So let's give a moment for everyone to select the answer or answers that's most relevant for them, and then we can continue on. All right, so are we getting some poll answers, and is it okay to continue on?
Yes, so we got a good amount of responses, so I'm going to close that out and share those results real fast. So it looks like a majority of our audience is looking for all of the above, so 67%. Nice.
Okay, and you know what? And I'm seeing that more and more. So it seems like predominantly AP automation still seems to trickle to the very top. But then mostly we see other departments, quote to cash is another really strong one, HR. But glad we're all in the right spot, and we'll continue to explore these concepts. All right, and just Courtney, can you, and yes, we're seeing my screen, that's great. All right. Let's talk about the high-level business benefits of why companies go paperless. So I've been with Alltech and DocLink for going on 15 years, and I secretly kind of always am hoping for this magic bullet, right? But what I'm finding is that the magic bullet is one of consistency, and that means that the business issues that DocLink solves are not changing, right? It is simply that the nature of enterprise-wide document management and workflow solutions are addressing these issues. So if in your organization you are struggling finding the right document and being able to have easy access, DocLink may be for you, right? Or if you're storing documents on a warehouse floor or in some other kind of massive storage entity, that becomes a problem. It could be that the nature of your business in approving invoices or putting other documents through a business process is very difficult, and you lose visibility and it impacts the transaction. So it could be that you're really searching for streamlining manual business processes. That's critical, and a huge component within DocLink workflow and other tools, to really wrap around driving productivity. Let's talk about minimizing data entry. When we start looking at the strategic growth initiatives of an organization, we have to dive down into the business processes and find out, well, where are the bottlenecks? Why are things not moving fluidly through the organization? And one of those things is here on data entry. So if you are spending a lot of time creating transactions, and at some point you're going to have to hire additional people to keep up with your transactional volume, then we can help you minimize data entry through using DocLink. And that way you'll be able to keep growing the organization and not have to add headcount. Automated delivery of documents. So this could be that you want to automatically send a purchase order and some other kind of document out to a vendor. Could also be on the other side of the equation, where we're talking about maybe a sales order confirmation or an AR invoice with some kind of supporting document out to a customer. A lot of possibilities here in really closing the loop on that entire transaction and getting documents moving fluidly through the organization. Huge benefit is that DocLink is what we call an out-of-the-box integration. That means it does not need to be built or customized. It is simply exists already. We've already made that work happen in order to bring you a deeply integrated solution. And we'll talk about that integration as we go forward, but one of which is being able to view documents right from within the screens, in your financial accounting application. And lastly, simplify audits. Right, so if you struggle with audits, you got a lot of bankers' boxes hanging around, a huge effort to gather documents, present them to the auditors and do the cleanup process, then this would be another meaningful thing for you. Let's talk about some of the time savings and the benefits. So I'd be interested to know, and maybe you can use your chat feature if you like and chat back to Courtney and just let her know if you are interested in any kind of ROI material. So just put ROI in the chat and we'll make sure we get you some ROI information. But we can really divvy up the return on investment to an organization in these 3 columns. And so it really helps for you to be asking yourselves, what are you spending in these areas today? So what are you spending in offsite storage? Square footage of filing cabinets, right? Or warehouse floor space. What does your contract for your copier look like? Are you having to hire someone or someone's, plural, in order to keep up with transactional volume? And then what's your overnight courier fees? Same thing with time savings, right? How much time are you spending in these areas today, knowing that when you go for a digital transformation and take a look at, eliminating paper from the organization, then you're able to achieve these business benefits. And I personally like the strategic initiatives column as well. So for those of you at the C level, you might have a higher view of the organization, and these might be things that are really driving your decision making. All right. So let's go into how DocLink works. In my mind, if I can help you understand how DocLink works, then you can easily see how DocLink can be used across the organization, right? And it doesn't matter anymore what the document is or how it travels or what transaction does it impact, right? Because the fundamentals are there. And so here's how it works. So we're going to start over here on the capture side on the left-hand side of the screen. And so in our world, we want to know what are the documents that you are trying to automate. And so if we look at it from a document perspective, then we can easily then decide what is the document? How is it produced in the organization? That will tell us what of these many, many different ways do we want to capture it to make it as easy and simple as possible and give you the greatest amount of data so that we can now take that document and data and move it through a business process. So let's go around to process. So we've captured the document, it's in DocLink, and now we want to send it through some kind of business process. So you're very familiar with a requisition going through an approval process. A PO, if it's not preceded by an invoice, maybe going through an approval process. Invoices, they're really common, going through an approval process. So you get the idea, it goes through a business process, and then based on our integration, we're able to take that document and data and update your financial accounting software. So because we've captured the document and many times have captured or influenced the data, now no more data entry, right? We're able to move that seamlessly into your ERP. And then you've got complete document packets available for search and retrieval, whether that's right from within DocLink in all these different methodologies via the web, via a mobile application, via the desktop, or right from within your ERP windows. And then lastly, at the bottom, there are going to be circumstances where you want to deliver documents outside the organization. And so this particular pillar, allows for us to do just that. All right, are you ready for another poll? So I'm really curious to know, just on the audience today, kind of where you're wanting to, what department maybe is percolating to the top for you, right? We're going to cover, accounts payable in greater depth. We'll go through, I think, some of the quote to cash and contract management, HR. We're going to go through them all, but I'm curious to know what is of most priority to you. So maybe you can participate in the poll and give us some clicks out there and let us understand, where are you seeing the most predominant need in your organization? And if I had to guess, right, my guess would be that they would be likely in the order that they're appearing here on the poll. But every once in a while I get surprised, right? There's no wrong answer. DocLink can be equally viable in all of these different areas. It really goes back to you in the organization. Where are you feeling the most amount of business issue or pain or pinches in the process? And then it's followed up by that has a financial impact, right? And that way we want to look at how we can drive, cost savings, time savings, and really meet those strategic initiatives.
So Perry, let's close out this poll and see if you're correct.
Let's see. Aha! Not too shabby. All right. Well, and you know what? You're not alone. So I want you to know that most companies do start with accounts payable. So regardless of what opens up the conversation, right, it seems like folks tend to come back to AP probably because it's simply a wash in paper, right? All right, let's continue on because I am eager to also get you to the demonstration. So we're going to give you some examples in these different areas. And the first up is going to be accounts payable. So a couple different things here. I said this earlier, but I think it deserves repeating that no matter what opens up the conversation, from an industry perspective or manufacturing, or maybe it's distribution, or you've got service-related documents, it does seem to come back to AP. And the top things that we're looking at in AP are these areas here. So most companies, especially obviously in the distribution arena, have a really strong way for two-way and three-way matching. And presently those processes are pretty labor intensive, so that might be one reason. Timely approvals. Nearly every single company that comes to me says, hey, Perry Lynn or PL, I really want to streamline our approval process because invoices are getting lost, and that's impacting our ability to negotiate early pay discounts, or we're having to pay late fees and we're trying to minimize and eliminate those. We've talked about that, minimizing data entry and eliminate filing, right? So any work surrounding the movement of paper is what we're trying to get rid of. And then also enable your remote workforce and all the people that are still in the office by giving them controlled yet self-service document access. I think that that's really, really important as well. And then lastly, of course, deliver something that is deeply integrated with your ERP so you don't have to worry about it not working fluidly. All right, a quick exploration. I have two little slides here, and then I think we're going to get into some demonstration. But I wanted to just highlight, the issues on managing a business with a manual process. And for those of you that need to calculate a very specific return on investment in order to get a project like this approved, there are questions, financial centered questions that are behind these. But here's our manual process, right? An invoice comes in, and you've probably got some coming in via email and some that are hard copy. The worst case scenario is that you're printing off those invoices that come via email, because the next step is you're going to be putting that rubber stamp on them, in order to begin the approval process. Plus, you're going to reach into the filing cabinet and dig out, the purchase order and the packing slips. So already in my body, I'm feeling a great degree of tension, right? This is already very time-consuming process. And so the idea is that we want to leverage technology to really streamline that entire piece. And we continue on, then we've got to route it through the approval process. How are you doing those approvals? Are you putting it in the cubbies, right? I've seen that before. Are you rescanning to email? There's a lot of still touching of documents that can be quickly, eliminated. All the while, it comes back, gets coded, and you're physically doing the data entry. And then you're filing, right? You do the payment and the check, and then you staple everything together and off to the filing cabinets. And then if someone wants to research, back to the filing cabinets. And then if it's an audit, off to someplace else to get that box. All of that we want to go away, right? We want to collapse it so that now you've got documents at your fingertips because they are electronic. You have complete visibility and control of where it is in that approval cycle. And because you are leveraging the intelligence of the software, whether it's OCR or being able to repurpose information in the vendor master information tables, we want to try and minimize and eliminate that data entry so that we can promote that transaction into your ERP application very smoothly and view documents right at your fingertips. So I think you're getting the picture here, of what we're really showcasing. So I'd love to introduce again Mark Whitbeck. He's one of our sales engineers, and he's prepared a demonstration today to give you kind of a quick bird's eye view of what some of the software looks like. Now, today is meant to be an introduction, right? So if anything that we're saying kind of resonates with you, then of course, reach out to your SWK representative, your sales rep, your customer account manager, and they can certainly put together a call where we can dive a little bit deeper into your processes and then really do a demonstration that's more specific to you. But today, a teaser view. All right, Mark. So I invite for you to share your desktop. So we'll just do a little transformation here.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so this is always a fun transition, so bear with me for 1 second, and we will go ahead and continue going on. So if I've done this right, you can see my screen, and we are good to go. So Really one of the most important aspects about going paperless is something that Perilyn just mentioned, and it's actually keeping that document digital. We can all scan documents, right? But as soon as we need to move it along its life cycle for approval and entry into the accounting system, the first thing we may do is physically print out that document to route it, and that's really what we want to avoid. Luckily, DocLink's really good at this, and I want to highlight that as we go through here. I'm going to take an invoice and walk it through its process from onboarding to the end when we're really just storing that document digitally. We never physically print this document out, and again, that's the idea here. We see basically two main ways of documents coming into an organization. That's via email, that's via paper. Either way, we're going to focus everything into the start of the process, that document onboarding. So if it's via email, great. We're going to look at that email source. We're going to pull it right into DocLink to start looking at the data and extracting that information automatically. If it's paper, scan it, let our scanner do its thing. Again, start the process by onboarding the document into DocLink. But this just highlights, yeah, we can look at email, we can look at your scanners, pull that in, super easy. Where that document goes next is OCR. So OCR is not a new technology here, but where DocLink enhances that is using intelligence and machine learning to learn your documents and validate the information from your ERP. So if we're looking at Sage as an example, go back into the vendor cards, pull in information based on what Sage has with vendors, GL codes, so on and so forth. So the intelligence is really the key here, not necessarily data extraction in OCR. If I go over to data validation, we can load a batch. So what happens when a document comes into email, we pull that in and OCR starts churning on that information for us. We're just going to grab a batch here. Think of OCR and this process as data that you no longer have to enter into the ERP. Because if we're looking at a document, we go straight to the ERP, into the voucher entry screen or invoice data entry screen. We start typing stuff vigorously into that so we can get it in and move on, right? There's a lot of data entry, a lot of keystrokes. This is what OCR aims to avoid. So we can minimize and really in a lot of cases eliminate that data entry for you. Here's a couple examples of invoices that have come in via email. We really want to run through this as an exception handling process only. That's key because a lot of these documents are going to flow right through OCR. Again, data that you no longer have to enter. At the very worst case scenario, we have to enter a couple data points, right? If for whatever reason we haven't worked with this vendor in the past, all we need to do is point and click on the data that we need to enter. So vendor, if for example there's a bad read of the scan of the document or there's a line through it, we may not get those data points and elements that we need. So we want to point and click on that where the data is, right? So reference number is invoice number, subtotal is down here, and pretty much in a couple clicks, we've grabbed all the metadata or data tags that we really need to move this document through its process, and we're good to go. Here's a quick example of a document that passed right through with no human intervention whatsoever. We like to stop it to show you what that looks like. Vendor, date, ref number, all the line item details have automatically populated, zero human intervention in this process. So we're going to stop there on OCR, move on. What happens next? The document goes through your business process. In our world, we call that a workflow. So that document may go into a numerous amount of buckets for individuals, for GL coding, review, whatever it might be in the organization. We mimic that process and make it digital for you. Here we see the document coming in. Really what we can do at this point is make reviews of that document, and we may need to GL code it. This happens in the ERP. We want to bring that process forward into DocLink to, again, keep that document digital. If we said, document stays here, but we can't do anything with it, you're gonna have to go back to your ERP, you need access to it, so on and so forth. Well, in DocLink, you can pretty much do anything that you can do in the ERP right from this view here. We've mimicked that process so that the GL coding happens automatically. All the header information is given to us by that OCR process, and all we need to do is add the GL line information. We can automate this to a degree as well. Default values from the vendor cards, pull up the entire GL chart of accounts, filter down the account codes based on segment codes, you name it. If it's something that you typically do in the ERP, we can do that within DocLink as well to speed up this process for you. Even if we're grabbing line item data from the invoice itself, we can translate that line item, let's say item number, to a account code within DocLink, so it gets auto GL coded for you. You don't even have to do that. So a lot of this stuff is just done for you. Last step in this process, we want to burn that data onto the document. So what we do is say, great, when we're done, burn it. And then if I look at our second page here, we can see all that audit trail on that document. This is great for your auditor coming in, looking at all the data that they need to see when they pull documents and everything that was coded onto that, who approved this, who added this information. That page actually is what drives that. It literally gets added as a second page to the document. So if we look at the original page, we can see that, and the second page is that audit history. What we want to do next is automate the approval process. So DocLink can look at all the metadata along the way. So we've captured a lot of the information. We can do a lot with this, right? So where does it go next is really the question we're answering. And DocLink says, great, I already know because we've pre-configured routing rules around that metadata, and we know exactly who it gets sent to next. So in this case, where we may have anything over $10,000 goes directly to our CFO for approval, automation can be involved with a button click to say, great, go to CFO for approval. We also can track and sort all the documents in its approval process in the document lifecycle with one view called Workflow Supervisor. This gives us the ability to go in and say, great, where is this document in its lifecycle? We can look at and see who's doing approvals timely. If someone is out of the office, we can move those documents automatically out of their queue to somebody else. If we need to simply skip the approval process because that really important invoice is going to cost us some early pay discounts, and we certainly don't want to have late fees, we can jump the process and get it into the ERP so that invoice can be paid in a timely fashion. If we have a very important vendor, we can flag them as priority. There's a multitude of things you can do in this view, but really it's all about the tracking of that document through its life cycle. If you're taking a piece of paper from email, printing it out, scanning it via email for someone to say, approve via email, we kind of lose track of that invoice in its life cycle. We really never know where that document is going to be. It may come back to us, it may not. That whole concept is lost within DocLink because we can constantly track every single document through its life cycle in this view here. As we look at the approval process here, I'm going to just take off our AP hat for a second. We're going to go look at the CFO as an approval representative in this one particular example. You can see what that approval looks like. We could do this via mobile. We could do this via the web. If you're out of the office somewhere else, it doesn't really matter. We can always do approvals within DocLink. If you only have email and you want to do it via email approval, you can do that as well. This process is super simple. It's a single button click to approve or deny making that decision. We can see that here in the side panel, approve, deny at informational notes. So I'm in as our CFO approval. We verify and authenticate the user by our login. So when we click that approve button, it puts our CFO digital authority on that document, and it lives with that document forever and always as long as it's in DocLink. If we wanted to add informational notes, think your digital sticky note, then we can do that here as well. Please review. Click OK, and that lives on there also. We can see the audit trail with our digital date time stamping, all that information for the communication to pass between one user to another. And when we're done, we click the approve button to move that document along. Super simple, gets the document out of our hair, onto the next one, move on with our lives. The idea isn't to live and breathe in DocLink, it's to actually not live and breathe in DocLink, to do your day-to-day stuff digitally, so DocLink does not become a burden in your organization. And what happens next is something really great, and DocLink takes all that document data, we've approved it, GL-coded it, we're done, we move it into the ERP, and that's it. DocLink takes it from there, we automate that process, you don't have to re-enter data. And that's the idea, is DocLink, we never want you to have to re-enter information so the process is complete. The data lives down in the ERP. In this case, we're showing Sage 100. Vendor information, invoice information gets added, GL lines get automatically added. And even better, we can look at that document within Sage by clicking the View Documents button. This is unique to DocLink. It's one part of the integration, right? So we click the button, recall a document. What DocLink also does is it says, let's monitor whatever a user changes here so we can make that change at the exact same time. So we don't have to do duplicate data entry if something changed at this level. So there's every bit of the process flow DocLink is monitoring to get that document in the system and to watch it through the entire life cycle. To end this here, we're going to click on the, oh, nope, sorry, we are still in our CFO mode. So we're going to exit here. We're going to go back to our AP because this is a function of AP now. So we're back and we're putting on our AP hat here. Logged in, we are enabled, which matters for DocLink. We can see that big green banner at the top. And if I click on View Docs, we can, DocLink goes out, it says, we'll find this document for me for vendor number and invoice number, the unique transaction, and DocLink finds that document for us in a split second, right? So this resolves having us to go back to our filing cabinet, pull out a document that we want to see that relates to the transaction in Sage. In a split second, we can move on with our lives and make that digital transformation easy for you. I'm going to end it there. We've talked about the entire process from the end or the start of the process, getting that document in to the workflow, moving it through, how DocLink integrates seamlessly to your ERP, and then finding documents seamlessly from your ERP without having to go back into DocLink. DocLink can obviously do a lot more here, and Perry-Lynn's going to touch upon that a little bit more as we look through other components, not just accounts payable. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we can have Perry-Lynn continue on with her component. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Well, thanks, Mark. Great presentation. I really, really love that. I think it's so beautiful to see how fluid things can move through. So for the audience, just think about, what kind of time savings do you think that you would be able to get, across your multiple team members? So let's talk about, the savings that you would get in AP, the savings of data entry, matching documents, search and retrieval, answering questions, right? Is that 30% of someone's time or 30% across team members' time? Is it 40%? Is it 50%? Right, those are things that you can start thinking about. What about the approvals? How much time will it save them on being able to click a simple email? So there's a lot of different kind of things that you can start unpeeling the layers of the onion, if you will, to really drive that business benefit. And like Mark was saying, there's so much more. So we all know that an invoice can be preceded by a purchase order. So using out-of-the-box functionality, we can automatically capture the purchase order and the data, right? So you don't have to do any kind of rescanning or anything else. It's right available for you. And then we can even take that one step further, and if it's applicable for your organization, send it out to the vendor automatically. provide a portal for those vendors to come and look at, the status of their invoices. So there's a lot of functionality that DocLink brings to the table to really facilitate your business process. And then, of course, we covered AP automation, right? And also taking care of being able to do some three-way matching, taking the invoice, scraping that data, automatically comparing to the receiving and the purchase order tables. And that way you're able to transform the organization to one of exception management, versus having to touch every single document. All right, so Courtney, I think I changed some of the words here. So I'm going to ask folks, if it's all right, to chat back. So I want you to really think about what's going on in AP, or even we can even extend that to requisitions through the payment process. Just think for a moment about where the most significant bottlenecks are. So is it about accessing the documents and being able to work remotely? That would be one answer. Could it be that the approval processes really need to be streamlined and automated to adhere to your corporate policies? Is matching the biggest issue that you're faced with? Is it managing growth in the organization, right? Or do you have needs related to expense reports or requisitions or credit card statement processing or other kinds of things? So I'm going to ask for you to chat. I think I'm going to ask you to chat back. Courtney, can you accept chats? Sorry, I want to make sure that that's an acceptable. I see it down here at the bottom.
Yes, you can go into the chat box of GoToWebinar and enter in a message, and it will be able to see that.
Perfect, perfect. So let's do that really quick for everyone, because I'd be curious to know, like, if there is a bit of a trend going on here about what issue, right, within those kind of scenarios that we just talked about is most prevalent. And then you can just put A, B, C, D, or E in the chat. And then we'll you know what, Courtney, if you wouldn't mind just doing a little glance through that chat, and then we can see if it's, A is the most predominant one, or B, or C, or, if we've got anything else going on there. All right, any answers coming through the chat? Is there one of these kind of options that is percolating to the top?
So we've got some responses for B.
Okay, and that's so interesting, because every single time I do a poll like this, that question does kind of like, or that particular issue really does percolate to the top. All right, let's continue on, because we've got lots more to explore. So if we remember back to our diagram, right, we want to capture a document, put it through a business process, integrate with the ERP, be able to have search and retrieval, and deliver documents outside the organization. So all of these things are appropriate, within the application. So some folks want to say, well, I want to take the larger picture and I want to just address accounts receivable, because my predominant issue is in routing invoices and supporting documents out to my customers. So that's a possibility. DocLink is modular, so you have an opportunity to only address the business issues that are most critical for you, and not necessarily have to, go with the whole enchilada, if you will. However, right, there is many opportunities within DocLink to facilitate the entire process. So whether your organization starts with a quote, which then a customer is going to send you their purchase order, which translates to a sales order. All of this can be facilitated through DocLink, right? We want to be able to capture the document, route it through some kind of approval process, impact the transaction. That's how it works. So when we start talking about capturing documents, we can capture them automatically from your financial accounting application, right? And this is functionality that is, I think, a differentiator for DocLink in the marketplace. So any document, report, or form that comes from your ERP can be captured into DocLink. And then we can say, well, Now that we've got this customer PO, right, we may want to send it through some kind of approval process before we want to take that and automatically create that sales order transaction, right? And then, of course, we're back to being able to retrieve all documents. This becomes very, very powerful. Think about it. If we're now capturing all the documents that belong in that sales order packet, right, you can now even get as granular as you want to search for all documents by customer name, by customer number, sales order number, customer PO, item number, right? So it really becomes very agile to be able to search for documents. And of course, we talked about the delivery, that automatic delivery of the AR invoice out to the customer. And the real big win here is being able to join up that AR invoice with some other kind of supporting document. Maybe it's a signed delivery ticket. Maybe it's their original customer PO. It all depends on what the requirements are of your organization. All right, let's talk a little bit about some customer stories. I want to introduce to you American Fruits and Flavors. So this company is based in Pacoima, California. They specialize in formulating natural fruit flavors, and they were able to cut down their AR time by 90% and grow without adding staff through the use of DocLink. So they started with AP, and then they quickly felt the benefits and moved into AR, right? And apparently they had like a whole side mobile building, office building, that was just designated for their documents and AR invoices. So it was just interesting to see what was going on there. And they were able to really collapse all of the time, you know, and the square footage supporting this particular process. All right, let's take a look at HR. So there's lots of opportunity here because, again, we're talking about a particular part of the process where there's many different documents, resumes, applications, benefit forms, W-4s, I-9s, reviews, so payroll stubs, right? So it's another department that has just a gob of paperwork. And then here as well, security is a major concern with any kind of records. So with this particular organization, they use DocLink to onboard their application process and send that application, you know, through a review process using DocLink workflow in order to really facilitate their onboarding process. So that was kind of an interesting use case of DocLink in the HR realm. I think they also went through the AP automation side of the house, but very exciting in terms of the benefits that they were able to achieve. ROI in 6 months, that's pretty powerful when you start thinking about, you know, the cost of doing business manually and now using technology as a tool for business transformation. So what did they get, right? So they were able to kind of house all of their resumes in DocLink, right? Giving them a better quality of applicant. They were able to do employee events, have management, you know, fill out the request for personnel. So a lot of different use cases on the HR side of things, including launching an employee web service via a self-service kiosk. You know, that was going to be very transformative for them also. One last use case in contract management. So I think that this is another kind of use case. The big thing here is if you want to store contracts in one centralized repository, right? Fantastic, great use case. But what happens if you want to monitor the expiration date and then send that into some kind of review process? I was talking with one of my customers, and they had actually had a real estate contract that had come up for renewal. They did not meet the renegotiated terms date, and it really resulted in a pretty significant financial impact to their organization. So I thought that was quite compelling, and they could have used DocLink in order to facilitate that process, manage the expiration date, push that into a workflow so someone can proactively be monitoring those contract expirations. So think for a moment about what's going on in your organization related to contract management. You know, is it that your contracts are difficult to find, you know, or that they have, you know, less agility than would be ideal? You know, are you missing certain milestones, or do you need help in managing those milestones so that you can, you know, have an upper hand in renegotiating those contracts? And then also think about it from a compliance perspective as well. So DocLink has lots of functionality to bring to the table. You can use it just to simply store and manage your documents, right? And use the search and retrieval functionality, or even full text search if you're trying to get, you know, different concepts, you know, within the search engine. Have easier access to these documents. So documents at your fingertips is still very, very critical. And then be able to, you know, use those expiration dates in order to take more proactive action. There's version control and integration with DocuSign electronic signatures. So if you're trying to send documents out for electronic signatures and then bring them back to store those signed contracts in DocLink, that's another possibility. Plus you can do contract templates, which is another nice way. So think broadly. We always like to kind of encourage you to think really, really broadly in terms of, well, what kind of contracts are you talking about? It could be anything, right? And so here's just a big, huge listing of all the different varieties of contracts that might come into the organization. All right, so we've talked about a lot of different kind of ways of managing contracts. We talked about the generating them through templates, the routing process for approvals and or managing expiration dates, you know, and then also just simply storing them. So as we start getting towards, you know, the ending of our presentation here, I want to kind of go back to the simple use case of DocLink, which is capture, process, integrate with your ERP, search and retrieval, and deliver. And then my challenge for you is to really think about, you know, what area of the organization would you benefit the most in going paperless and achieving that digital transformation? There's a lot of different possibilities. It all depends on you, you know, and where you think you're going to get the most amount of benefit. Now, couple things that set DocLink apart. I think this is going to be important to kind of chit-chat about. There's lots of organizations that you can go to, and I think that what really sets DocLink apart in the marketplace is the following. So number one, it is not just an AP solution. It is not only for AP, but it can also be for the entire procure to pay process, right? It can be used, we talked about the quote to cash side of the house, right? So it's an enterprise-wide solution that can be used in any department that is having paper-based bottlenecks and business issues. We can use the strength and power of AI and machine learning embedded in OCR and achieve automated matching. That's really critical. There's a very strong and powerful workflow engine that can be set up and configured to do rules-based automation. So what I mean by that is routing invoices by dollar amount or dollar amount and maybe vendor name or by GL account code. You get to decide on what those rules are so you can better adhere to your corporate policies. There's a lot of different methodologies to access DocLink, right? So that's really critical. Do you want to access DocLink via the web and have a zero footprint client? Do you want to access it via the mobile device? So there's a lot of possibilities in terms of how you wish to access DocLink. There is the toolkit called Smart Form Toolkit that's all about enabling you to produce forms. So the forms could be a requisition, an expense report, a vacation request form, a credit card processing form where we bring in data from your credit card holder, splice it up by that actual card holder, and then send it out for the approvals and attachment of receipts, right? So a lot of flexibility in that Smart Form Toolkit platform. And there's many different purchasing options as well. So we like to just offer up many options that we're going to resonate with you. So you can do an on-premise deployment and a perpetual license. You can do an on-premise and a subscription license, or you can take DocLink to the cloud, right, through a subscription offering. So if you're going to the cloud, you can take DocLink with you, or make DocLink the first, step into the cloud. So there's a lot of different options to really support your organization. So why DocLink? I have a great deal of passion for Alltech and DocLink as an organization. We have world-class products with super deep functionality that solve real-world problems, right? We can do it in a rapid implementation timeframe, and we have exceptional customer support. So I would love an opportunity to welcome you to the DocLink family. All right, we're getting ready for our Q&A section. We've got about 10 minutes left for our session today. So let's round this out with one last poll, and I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So thank you, Courtney. I see the poll populating here. So tell us a little bit about what was really important to you from today's webinar. Are you, looking for that remote access? Was that important? Were you looking for a solution that has a tight integration with your ERP? Is that most important? Are you just super delighted to know that DocLink can work across many departments? And I think lastly, has something resonated from today's presentation, and you're ready to take the next step, right? So that would be D, contact us. The next step would be that we would want to set up a call. It can be 30 minutes to an hour. And what we'd like to do is talk about, well, what are your goals? What are you trying to do as an organization? And then we like to do a quick mapping of what are you doing in the areas today and where are those paper-based bottlenecks. That gives us a little bit of visibility into, how much technology would make sense to, apply in your particular circumstance. Then once we've had that discovery call, we can put together a preliminary quote. And if that's agreeable, gear up for a product demonstration that uniquely, shows you how you can use DocLink to meet your business requirements. All right, so I think we can close the poll. And then in this particular case, I think we're gonna move to questions, right?
Yes, so thank you, Perry, so much. The presentation has been great. And as she said, we are going to move to questions now. So some of you have already submitted some questions in the question section box, and feel free to submit some more. Perry, are you ready to answer some of the questions we've had come through?
I think so, but you know what? I'm going to rely on Mark for all the technical questions. So Mark, please chime in for all of the ones that are technical in nature.
Of course, yep.
You're the best, thank you.
So our first question is, with AP and AR, if I'm coding it in DocLink, is it creating a file to import to the software I'm using for accounting?
Yeah, so I'll take this, Marilyn. This is where DocLink's integration that's out of the box, already built, really comes into play. So we're really just taking the data. We're not exporting the data to a CSV file, which a lot of solutions do. It's really just taking that data or metadata and creating the information in the ERP as a seamless, integrated component behind the scenes. This is through web services usually. It's depending on the ERP, but a lot of this is already pre-built, and then that's how it works.
Great, thank you. So our next question is sort of technical, I think, as well. If our accounting software is on-premise, could DocLink be hosted on cloud? Or if on-premise accounting software, should DocLink be on-premise as well?
The good news here is that you have a choice. If you want DocLink to be on-prem while your ERP is on-premise as well, we can do that. If you want to use DocLink as the first step as part of your cloud initiative to move into cloud system that isn't on-premise, where DocLink hosts your infrastructure, manages all the backend stuff, getting free upgrades, all that good stuff, then we can do that as well, and we can still communicate with your on-prem ERP.
Great, sounds like two good options. Our other one is, does DocLink store integration with Sage vendor information? So if the vendor information changes, are those changes immediately picked up?
Yeah, so short answer is yes. We are constantly monitoring and communicating with the ERP. If they're like in the vendor example, if new vendors are added, DocLink picks those up into cache, and we use that information for users to have exact up-to-date vendor information. Same goes for GL codes. Same goes for a handful of other caching that we do from all the data from the ERP.
Great, and then I think unless we have any last minute submissions, I think this will be our last question. So our question is, I'm assuming this is a full package purchase. I won't be able to get it piecemeal.
Oh, maybe I can take this one. So absolutely you can get it piecemeal. So we want to find out what's going on in your organization. Do you simply want an electronic filing cabinet? That would be a very small selection of modules. Do you want the full enterprise-wide solution? That's going to be more modules. So we will discover together through that discovery call what modules are critical for you, and then we can help you with various options as well, depending on what you're looking at, what the business issue is, and what is your budget as well. Great questions. All
okay,
right.
well, great.
Thank you.
I think that's our last one. So thank you everyone for your questions and your participation and the polling questions throughout. And again, I would like to thank you, Mark and Perry Lynn, for such a great presentation. There was a lot of good information in there, and we want to thank everyone in the audience for attending this webinar as well. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.